You're welcome to the Naija Filmmaker, a podcast about Nigerian filmmakers, their films, and how we can build a diverse and functional industry. I'm your host, Selegot. On this episode, my guest is Isioma Idigbe. She's an IP and entertainment lawyer. She's currently the head of media, entertainment, and IP law at Punuka Attorneys and Solicitors. We talk about why your production needs a lawyer, the controversial MOPICON bill, and useful insurance policies for your film. If you're a new listener, you're welcome and I hope you enjoy. Hi Isioma, you're welcome to the Naija Filmmaker.
Hi, Sele. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
You're welcome. Can you introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Isioma Idigbe, and I'm a partner at the law firm Punuka Attorneys and Solicitors, where I head the media, entertainment, intellectual property, and technology practice. I've been practicing entertainment law for the last 6 years, largely in Nigeria, but doing a lot of cross-border transactions, representing, Nigerian producers and talent, and also working for international media and entertainment companies in Nigeria, and also advising across the continent.
Yeah, so can you tell us a bit about your career background and when you kind of made that move into the industry, and also starting out in intellectual property and entertainment law?
Well, I actually started by accident. So my husband, then when I was still a student, my boyfriend, now my husband, is actually a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And when I came back from studying law in the UK, because you have to come back and qualify as a lawyer in Nigeria, so you have to go to law school. After school, we'll go out maybe to have drinks with my husband and his friends, and a lot of things they would complain about. Oh, someone used my script and they didn't pay, or without permission and stuff like that. It just sounded like legal issues because I was a lawyer. And so I actually would then go online and Google, if this happened, what will you do? And that's when I discovered entertainment law, and that this was actually an area of practice providing legal services for the creative industry. And then I decided, so I'll go back and talk to my husband's friends and say, hey, why don't you do this, or why don't you do that? And those were my first set of clients.
Yeah.
And I realized we totally underserved area, and I went back to school to really learn about entertainment law in Canada. I was just going to do law school, just that my parents would have the certificate. It really wasn't much about me.
Yeah.
Then I was just start a food business that I had registered. And so this just came up, and it's been a wonderful experience. I've always liked the creative arts. I was always in drama club, or even my love for food and cooking is creative expression.
Yeah.
But I'm not the most talented person, right? So I guess again, it's allowed me to be around something I love, but also being able to add value through my knowledge and expertise as a lawyer. That's my origin story.
Yeah. So with intellectual property, can you break it down for us? Like, what does it cover? Like, what different mediums does it cover?
Different types of intellectual property protection that you can have are copyright, which is always very relevant in film, and is really the key type of protection that applies when you look at filmmaking. You have trademarks, which are usually used to protect like your name or your brand, right? So you look at something like McDonald's, which is this brand that is associated, a big brand that is protected trademark.
Yeah.
You have patents at the time, which is to protect mechanisms that can be industrialized, or new creations or inventions that really can be multiplied. So it understands the length and breadth of um, human innovation and ingenuity, and even the categories of intellectual property will continue to develop and grow as humans continue to evolve and innovate. Now, these different types of intellectual property protection have different ways that um, the innovator or the person seeking the protection can access them. He who creates owns. So the person who creates that work, and this is very important, whether or not they were commissioned by somebody else, as long as you are the creator and therefore the author under the definition of Nigerian copyright law, you own that intellectual property, you own that copyright, and you don't need to register for you to be the owner. This is for copyright. Now, to grant or to give that right to somebody else, whether or not that person commissioned you, you have to assign or license it through a written instrument, through a written document. So people have to understand that, and the law is written that way to ensure that those who are actually creating these intellectual properties are able to benefit from them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how copyright works. Now there are different categories of works that fall under copyright protection. The different types of works that go under copyright protection, you have literary works. Literary works would be a screenplay, even like a written code
Yeah.
for like some kind of application. Um, you have musical works, so that's lyrics, actual like sheet music. If anybody who did music in school, they say tremolo and all that stuff. You have artistic works, paintings,
Yeah.
pictures, buildings. You have photographic works, you have cinematography works, which
Yeah.
is basically said films. And as you know, films are interesting because they actually, even performance as well, the actor's performance has a copyright protection over it.
Yeah.
So film is interesting because it is accumulation of all those works. You need all those works
Yeah.
to create a film. So it's very important that when you, as a producer, if you're a film producer, when you produce a film, although the Nigerian Copyright Act recognizes the producer as the owner of the intellectual property in a cinematograph work,
Yeah.
it also recognizes that that cinematograph work is a compilation of all these other types of works that are entitled to intellectual property protection, and mandates that the producer gets the proper permissions and licenses from those other owners of those intellectual properties.
Yeah.
Now, this is when you talk, and all of that's accumulated in what you call the chain of title. That is, the chain of title is saying these are all the documents that show how I have come to own all the intellectual property as the producer in this film.
Yeah.
And therefore, based on that, I can go ahead and enjoy all the benefits that the owner of that intellectual property will have. And what are those benefits? You can exploit the work, right? You can sell it, you can license it, you can do a remake of it. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
You can you essentially exercise control over the distribution, the publication, reproduction, and adaptation of that intellectual property. That is as regards copyright. And the laws that cover copyright in Nigeria are, of course, the Nigerian Copyright Act 2004, which is currently being reviewed for a new copyright bill to pass. So people in the industry should pay attention and make sure that all the protections that they need are in there. You have the Copyright Levy of Materials Order 2012,
Yeah.
which is basically saying it's basically a levy order on like any material that has the ability to reproduce intellectual property has like it's almost like a tariff charge on it, but it's never been activated, and that's sad because that's a huge way of generating revenue for creators, because that revenue is sent to their collective management organizations who are then meant to distribute it to the rights owners. So this brings me to the Copyright Collective Management Organization Regulation 2007, which is a collective management organization, is essentially like a body set up by rights owners to help them administer their rights. That is license and distribute, usually for public performance. Public performance is like I'm sitting in a hotel or a hospital lobby and the TV is on. Everything that is playing on that TV is intellectual property, but it is not cost effective for every single right owner to chase every single hospital, hotel, bar, restaurant. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So they set up this organization to license all those uses and then distribute the income. And of course, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria applies. Then you also have international treaties that apply. And this is interesting because Nigerian content is not just Africa-wide content, is actually global content. Even before Netflix, unfortunately, most of those exploitations were illegal. But thanks to Netflix, and even Amazon and the rest of those platforms coming in, our content is now being legitimately consumed. So you have the Berne Convention 1886, the Universal Copyright Convention 1952, the Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, TRIPS, WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization Copyright Treaty, the Beijing Treaty on Audiovisual Performances 2012, and Nigeria has actually signed onto all these treaties. They've just not regularized it into Nigerian law, which is part of what the update to the Copyright Act is also meant to do. And copyright is generally regulated by the Nigerian Copyright Commission. So the Nigerian Copyright Commission, for instance, has a copyright registry. Now, remember I said copyright is automatic under Nigerian law. However, I always advise people to register at the copyright registry, because what you do is that you put the public on notice that you are the owner of this intellectual property. And so if you have an issue of infringement, one, it's important because if people want to, let's say, create something, they can do a search at that registry and they see, oh, someone already has this, and they'll back off. That's one benefit. The second benefit is when you go to court, it just makes you proving your ownership a bit easier. In countries US, their laws are slightly different, where they say, well, copyright is automatic, but if you want to enforce your copyright in court, you have to have registered it. And I think it mandates that registration there because of the reasons which I have stated here now. Then you have trademarks. So that's everything about copyright, which you can see from my explanation how it is so critical for the film industry. Then you have trademark, which is usually for brands and logos. So again, you look at a project like King of Boys, for instance, which we had the privilege of working on, and the King of Boys logo and that whole asset, that logo alone, is such a big intellectual property, and a trademark over that is critical, because that is even an area of revenue for the filmmaker. So for instance, if you build out a film or a project that becomes so like Game of Thrones, or even like Disney does this very well with their children's stuff, you're able to then do a lot of merchandising, all of that. So you need trademarks as well. I always tell people, if you do a film, trademark the title of your film. You just never know how it could be useful. Plus, it just prevents somebody else from using it as well. Patents, again, this doesn't really apply because that covers for inventions, industrial designs for shapes, surface decoration, and other artistic, geographical indicators. There's an argument that should we do a geographical indicator for the Asaba movies, seeing that they all come from. I mean, like, it'll be a stretch, but it'll be interesting, right? So that's like a quick in IP course 101 for anyone. I hope it's helpful. Sorry, I missed something. When I was talking about the international treaties, why they are important is that because Nigeria is a signatory to those treaties, it allows you to get the same protections, copyright protections you have under Nigerian law in those countries. That's the benefit.
All right, that's useful.
Also allow people in those countries to have protections in Nigeria as well.
Okay, so you mentioned I think is it content management organizations, the ones that try to. Oh,
Collective management organizations.
okay, yeah. So for the Audiovisual Rights Society of Nigeria, do they fall under that?
Yes, they are a collective management organization for audiovisual rights. Yes, they do.
Yeah. So can you tell us some of the services that a law firm can offer a creative or a production company, throughout the whole production value chain? That's from, the writing bit to exploiting the rights.
Once you have a script,
Yeah.
even at the point of maybe a second or third draft, you should bring in a lawyer. Even, having your lawyer read your script can even help you. For instance, in terms of risk management, or, maybe this, you might want to reconsider this, or, I'll tell you something, like somebody did a film once and they had, like, in a fictional store, they used the name and it was of something that was a thing in real life. And you're supposed to do title clearances and searches when you're doing films.
Yeah.
So if you bring in your lawyer early enough, they would pick up all these things and solve these problems. You need your lawyer from pre-production all the way to post-production. They're able to give you support. Just with the example I gave, even at that stage, you should already be trying to get your insurance, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on. They would help you with doing all your contracts, your actors' contracts, your pre-sale deals, if you're doing a negative pickup, your distribution deals, and all of that. Help you with getting your insurance policy to cover your project. Like all of that. Help you even to structure your project for financing. Okay. As I speak to you now, I know how many projects I'm working on where we're structuring them to be able to enable them access financing. So the value of a lawyer in filmmaking cannot be overstated. Yeah. And a lot of people always underestimate. And I tell people it's more expensive when you come to a lawyer when you're in a crisis. Because at that point you're desperate. The lawyer is dealing with a far more complicated situation. And so they're going to charge you an arm and a leg. But if you have a lawyer that's been with you, I'm not saying it'll be cheap. We certainly are not the cheapest lawyers in town.
Yeah.
But it's more cost effective because one, you can bring in a lawyer to solve a problem for you, and sometimes the solution to your problem also involves you dropping more money, right? A lawyer helps you save money. It helps you because their real job is to manage your risk, right? Because when you don't manage your risk, one of the ways that you pay for that is usually financial. Either you're paying out or you're losing some monies that you could have gained. So an example would be you go and use someone's intellectual property without clearing the rights. You go and put music in your film without clearing the rights and signing an agreement that gives you the license to use it. And then the person comes and sues you later and gets a big judgment that is maybe 4 or 5 times what you would have paid if you actually just went to them to get the proper permissions. You understand? Your lawyer can do the job and maybe get the matter to settle out of court, but that settlement would include you paying them a licensing fee, which probably is after you've done the film and you're broke and you're trying to even just recoup the money you've sunk into the project in the first place. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have to deal with this. So I think there is a lot that a lawyer does, and you need lawyers, and you need lawyers that understand, because people then make the mistake and they go and call their cousin that is a lawyer who doesn't understand entertainment law. You need an entertainment lawyer as a filmmaker to take you through the process, protect you, and make sure that everything is in order.
Okay. You talked about, lawyers helping with structuring a production for financing. Can you explain a bit, like, why is that important?
Well, someone giving you money for your project is a big deal,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of the time, people have challenges with financing for several reasons. One, the industry has a reputational challenge, which also comes back to the fact that lawyers are not even involved in the process in the first place, and so the processes are not properly structured, the obligations are not laid out, and all of that.
Yeah.
So there's a reputation issue. And then two, how do you what are the terms and conditions on which you're taking this money, and what are you guaranteeing in return? Because a film is by design highly high risk.
Yeah.
I can make a beautiful film, full picture, everything, even good story, but the story just may not connect, right? Because just that element of like what people would like, that you cannot really, you can try and predict it, but it's still quite unpredictable. So what do you do when you've taken money in that situation? How do you manage that kind of risk, right? What is the structure for that investment to even come in?
Yeah.
How do we manage all those risks? How do we manage that investors so that, okay, even if this doesn't work out, I can still have access to that line of credit for other projects that may be successful. So there's a whole lot that goes into film financing, and you need a lawyer who's experienced in this to help you structure your project. People don't know how to structure film projects in Nigeria, but abroad it's just a normal, especially in Hollywood, and it's the normal thing that they do.
Yeah.
But here these frameworks are just coming in. I mean, I've spent many years. I remember, I don't know if it was my second or third AFRIF.
Yeah.
I did a workshop. I think last year's AFRIF was the only AFRIF where I didn't do a workshop and I just was on a panel. But normally the standard is I always do a workshop on something. And I remember I did a workshop on structuring film projects, and people just were shocked. We talked about setting up special purpose vehicle companies. Now with the passing of the new Companies and Allies Matters Act 2020, you now have the option of even doing it as limited liability partnerships, which is closer to the LLC structure that you have in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And in each project stand on its own as an independent legal entity, which allows you to de-risk your own production company, because you look at your production company like an incubator company. I incubate the project until it's ready to go into production, and then I ship it off into its own separate legal entity, which my legal entity has taken. Allows me to engage other people in financing, to use different types of financing, whether it's equity, whether it's a combination of debt and equity. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Like, which in other areas, in other types of industries, these are like kind of, they are similar structures, you understand?
Yeah.
But, we also need to know in the creative industry that our business is serious business. And so we should structure our businesses seriously and think about risk and managing our stakeholders and all of that. Of course, I don't want to get too detailed, right?
Yeah.
About it. But I think I've dropped some snippets, right?
Yeah, definitely. Can you mention like 3 random facts about you?
Oh my gosh, I am actually like the most random person. Had a cooking business when I was in university.
Yeah.
Very random fact.
What was your most popular dish? Yeah.
I don't know. I think people always ordered. I don't think there was one thing that was particularly popular, to be honest. People tended to order a diverse range of foods. I don't recall that there was any particular food that was specifically ordered.
Yeah. Okay.
Another random fact about me is I absolutely love trashy reality TV. I love it. And people find that funny because people think I'm a very, very serious person.
Yeah.
But I really have very unserious things I do, such as my unhealthy love for trashy reality TV. So give me all the Real Housewives. I
Yeah.
watch them. Um, Love and hip hop. I just love all that stuff. I guess maybe for me, it's a way that I completely decompress.
Yeah.
My brain. And what's the most random third one? Oh,
Yeah. One more.
I'm actually really thinking. There are a lot of random things, but I'm trying to give you something that I feel like is juicy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
I'm quite a random person. Oh, I love like decor, like home decor, interior decor. I'm kind of fairly good at it.
Okay.
And I quite love is changing something in my house or fiddling with something. I have a strong passion for interior decor. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things you did was to help set up a content verification service.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk more about that?
So Verve content is basically it came out of just being in a situation where I had a lot of clients that were having issues with content that they were putting on their platforms, different intellectual property infringement claims coming out. Like, I mean, in some cases, it was on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So I set up Verve Content to be an organization through which people can come and what we essentially do is due diligence on intellectual property.
Yeah.
So you want to do something, we can help you say this is who owns it and this is how to clear it, and we can also go through the process of clearing it for you. So that's pretty much what Verif content is. And it's been picking up a lot of hits, recently. Just because, again, our work now is now being consumed globally. So everybody wants to have their backs covered. You know what I mean?
Not clearing certain copyrights, can it kind of hamper the possibilities of getting worldwide distribution for your content?
It does. Yeah, because no one wants to take on liabilities. People don't know that this is where insurance comes in, right? Because, and this is a lot of verification that we do now is for insurance companies that want to give coverage to projects.
Yeah.
So the practice is that when you have a film, you should have what is called an errors and omissions. In Nigeria, it's called a professional indemnity, but it's basically the producer taking out a professional indemnity cover, covering that work with third-party intellectual infringement claims, defamation, libel claims. So in case by accident something isn't cleared properly and someone comes, instead of having to pay cash to pay your lawyer to defend you or to even pay off the claim, the insurance policy would cover it. However, of course, insurance is not in the business of paying claims. So the real value is that they would do that due diligence and they would only give coverage to a work that has that protection that is unencumbered. Right? Now, if I was going to an international distributor with a work that had this coverage, global coverage, it improves my negotiation points because for them, they are taking a safe work because they would even become a third-party beneficiary of that policy because they are liable for infringement because they are exploiting the work if that were to come up.
Yeah.
I can probably get more money because I'm going with an unencumbered content. But one of the things that I use to lowball what is paid out for content in Nigeria is that, well, we're taking more of a risk because you guys are not going through the proper processes that you should go through.
Yeah. So, like, let's say a producer started the project and at the beginning they didn't take an insurance cover. Taking that insurance cover in post-production, is that too late or they can always do that?
Yes, you can. But the problem is, let's say, for instance, if at post-production stage, like people always make this critical mistake, you've done your film and then you start thinking about the music after. Meanwhile, the cost of music should be part of your film budget.
Yeah.
Which means that you should have known the music you wanted to use at that time and figured out whether you could afford it at that time. People would have even already layered on the music, and then you're now trying to clear it, doing things backwards.
Yeah.
It then creates a very difficult situation, because at the point of post-production, that's usually when the production, in terms of financially, is completely fagged out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's, budgets are supposed to guide your activities. These things should be done as early as possible. You can do them after, but you can see some of the complications that can arise when you do them towards the end instead of starting with them in mind at the beginning.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk about the different types of insurance covers that film production companies can get. You were involved in kind of advising insurance companies on, preparing special insurance covers for the film industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the different ones that most insurance companies offer. I know that, like, some years back, for example, I tried to get like insurance cover for equipment and also crew, but with one or two companies, they didn't have something purpose built for the industry, so it was kind of hard closing the deal with them. So what are some of these insurance covers?
Well, so you have, like you've already said, you've had equipment rental, equipment, that's if you own, you get, if you rent, you get. There's public nuisance, like especially if you're shooting in a public place.
Yeah.
If something happens, you want to have policy to cover that. Group accidents, so in case someone, a light falls on someone, there's an accident, you're protecting all your cast and crew. Key cast, critical. So that's if, let's say, something happens, I've shot like 40% of my film, and my main character becomes incapacitated for whatever reason, I have to reshoot. I need the cost of, replacing that to be covered. You have negative insurance, which is insuring the completed film, the hard drive where it is all saved in, to save those rushes. So in case it gets lost or it's damaged in a fire or water accident or whatever, you can get it to essentially reshoot, because that's what you will need to do. You have even life insurance sometimes can be taken out on some key cast. You have of course, I've talked about the errors and omissions, the indemnity, and then you have completion bonds, which usually, if you are dealing with a financier that knows their onions, you would ask your project to get a completion bond attached to it.
Yeah.
And those completion bonds would mandate that you have all these other policies that I've even listed before. But really, what the completion bond does is that if you essentially run out of money to complete your project, the bond is supposed to be triggered. But really, what the bond does is to make sure that the project is done on time and on budget. So for a financier, that's very comfortable for me, because it means that somebody is monitoring this project, which my investment is inside. So those are some of the different types of insurance policies that you should have on your project. And for those who are listening to this podcast, it's quite sad that people always want to cut corners and take too many risks with themselves and with the people that they are working with and with their project, because they just don't want to be bothered to go through the process of getting these policies and doing all of this, right? But it's actually quite simple if you just choose to just from the beginning say, you know what, I'm going to do this project the way it should be done. It goes down to whether the quality of the story is good, which we're seeing a lot of backlash now from the audience on the low quality of and it also goes into making sure that your production is operating well.
Yeah.
You have all policies to cover people if someone gets hurt or something happens to your production. Your investors feel safe that they can trust your money in your hand, which means that they will come back again when you have another project.
Yeah.
Your cast and crew are comfortable where they are shooting. They are well taken care of. You can get the best out of them when they are comfortable. So it's very important, all these things. That's part of doing world-class level of work.
Yeah. Okay, so for the majority of these insurance covers that you mentioned, is it something that is just on paper, or the insurance industry have widely adopted them in Nigeria?
We have a number of insurance companies that, they are not all of them, and there are so few that have policies, but there are, I'll say like 3 or 4 that have some of these policies. Some even have all of these policies available. So if anyone wants any information on that, you can always contact me and we can guide you in the right way of getting that.
Yeah. Let's move to the controversial MOPICON bill.
Well, I don't really want to spend so much time talking about this because I feel like people in the industry need to take it seriously and do that bill. But the long and short of it is that it is a bill that is seeking to establish a Motion Pictures Practitioners Council of Nigeria, which would essentially be like a government agency that regulates who can shoot films.
Yeah.
And it has ridiculous language in it, like, oh, if you are not registered under MOPICON, you cannot shoot, and if you do, you will be fined or you can go to jail. And then even for you to be registered, you have to have all these years of experience, which who is going to get all those years of experience? One, I don't even think this bill can pass because it derogates from our fundamental human rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic, which is the freedom of association, freedom of expression. They infringe those rights, and they don't arise to the point of necessity for that infringement to occur. So that is problematic. When you look at film industries across the world, some are fully self-regulated, like in the US. Some are co-regulated. That is, you have some government regulation, and then you have the industry itself self-regulating, which is kind of who we are in Nigeria at the moment, because you have the Nigerian Film and Video Censors Board playing a big role as a regulator. The fear, apart from MOPICON derogating from these constitutional rights, which I've talked about, the biggest issue is that it's going to stifle the industry.
It's
going to create more bureaucracy, and then it's going to stifle creativity. The beauty of the creative industries is that, look at, for instance, the Ikorodu boys. These are just some kids who were filming short videos for fun. And now have an entire career built out of that. With a MOPICON, those kind of boys cannot exist. So it is very problematic to have such an entity exist. What we need to be focusing on, rather, is getting our existing guild structure to work. So young filmmakers should be joining their guilds and getting involved in their guilds, so their guilds can do for them what the people who are purporting this bill are saying, that the industry needs to be structured. Of course, the industry needs to be better structured, for investment to flow, for people to actually really make livable wages and have good lives here. But that's what guilds are meant to do. Your guild is meant to negotiate the standard terms of employment for your specific class of service. Your guild is supposed to make sure that you have a healthcare plan and a pension plan, because this industry is naturally a freelancing industry. And you have examples of industries across the world that function in this way. They'll come and say, well, this is Nigeria. It can't work. No. If Nigerians can leave Nigeria and go to other places and be the best in those places, we can do it. We have to choose that we want to make those organizations and those institutions that exist work, and the young people cannot simply play lip service and complain. They are the ones that have the majority of their careers in front of them. They have to get involved, actively involved in those structures, and get them to do what they are supposed to do.
You did a presentation at the American film market about the laws and regulation of the film distribution in Nigeria. What are some key points that filmmakers should be aware of?
The biggest thing that they need to know is the fact that they need to get for you to distribute your film in Nigeria, you need to have your permits from the Nigerian Film and Video Censors Board, who primarily regulate the distribution and exhibition of film and video works in Nigeria. There are some regulatory issues where, for instance, said because exhibition and distribution of film is not on the exclusive list, so it means that states are able to set up their own censors board. So you have like censors board in Kano, I think, for instance, which they used to enforce, their strict conservative, points of views as regards censorship of films.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to work around those things. But there's quite a number of laws that actually apply when you look at distribution of film. Of course, the Constitution applies, Film and Video Censors Board Act does, CAMA does as well, the Copyright Act does for the reasons I talked about, being able to own all those rights that you're exploiting vis-a-vis the cinematograph film. There are tax issues that arise, and stuff like that. So it's important to understand those things. Again, you should engage a lawyer to advise you on those processes. But really, if you work with a good distributor, they will also be able to give you some guidance on all of that as well.
Okay. All right. So, can you mention that one film or TV show that you always love to revisit, to rewatch?
Oh, my favorite film that I've watched, and probably the only film I've watched multiple times, is Pulp Fiction. Absolutely love that film. I don't even know why I love that film so much.
Yeah.
But I think probably because it was like the first time I watched a really artistic film, and it just stuck with me.
Yeah.
And in terms of TV shows, what TV show have I watched? Sex and the City.
Okay.
Love Sex and yeah.
Most times when a film has been completed and it has had its cinema run, the producer starts having negotiations with the, let's say, video on demand services, let's say Netflix, Amazon. What's the benefit of having a law firm do that on your behalf?
These people are experienced in these types of transactions, and they can protect you. So of course you need a lawyer to guide you through types of negotiations. And also, especially lawyers who are entertainment lawyers in the industries, they also have information about, like, for instance, how much you can push to get more money and things like that, because they can have inside information about, like, what the platform can actually pay.
Okay. What do you think the industry should be doing to get the government to be more serious about tackling piracy?
I mean, I feel this piracy conversation is exhausting to me. The focus should be on building legitimate distribution channels. I mean, pirates, you kill one today, there's another one tomorrow. And then our industry signed a deal with the devil many years ago, where marketers were funding, projects, and were, essentially distributing the project, the films.
Yeah.
And so now you want to back on that deal. It's tough. The only way around it is to create alternatives, which you're seeing happening with Netflix and the rest coming in.
So yeah, just the industry just needs to create more avenues to exploit their content.
Especially with the AFCTA coming in, we need to make sure that we're creating legitimate distribution channels across the continent so that we can leverage on the benefits of the AFCTA as an industry.
Nollywood is evolving, and we're dealing with bigger budgets for our films, and our films are traveling further. But what do you think the industry should prioritize in terms of making concrete improvements?
Structure, getting properly structured, paying people better, making sure that people can be taken care of, even after they are in active work. And I think that once we decide that we want to run as an industry, not a community of filmmakers, which is what I think we really have now, everything else would fall in place. Will be taken much more seriously by the government, and they would even have more clarity in a more structured system of how to adequately support and create an enabling environment. More investment will flow through because the sector will be just essentially more sanitized and all of that. We need to focus on structuring the internal thing.
Let's say a production doesn't get insurance and there's an accident on set. According to Nigerian law, who is liable, to go down? Let's just say there's like a death on set as a result of the production. Who is legally liable for that?
I mean, the producer has liability, and you can sign all sorts of contracts and say you're not liable, but if you are found to be negligent, that may not save you as a producer.
Okay. And are you aware of any case that is similar to this?
Yes, and I know that producer now always was able to find a way out of that, but now always make sure that he has insurance on all his productions.
Okay, so for Verve content, like if people need to engage your services on that, how can they find you?
Just send an email to info@vervecontent.com. Unfortunately, we don't have a website yet. We're working on that. But you can reach us today. You can also reach me on my email, i.idigbe@punuka.com. And just send an email and we'll also deal.
Okay. Thanks, Isioma, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Sele.
Yeah, thank you. We have come to the end of this episode. Remember to rate and review the podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at SelegoFilm, and the podcast at the Naija Film Pod to share your feedback. You can now support the podcast by visiting the website to donate. See you on the next episode. Have a good one.